These are the old pull mores that I pulled off of this train and some others. And all I do on those is go in and remove the pull more from the groove slot, or from the groove, and then place a new tire in after, of course, I've cleaned it up. I have had good response in not even putting any kind of adhesive between the tire and the wheel. They seem to perform very adequately. Although if you have any problems with the tire slipping, then maybe go back and re-clean the wheel surface and maybe put in a drop at the quarter or 1/8 positions around the wheel of super glue or crazy glue. The other issue is that you may find that when you pull the wheels, and by the way, a critical tool to doing this, in addition to the vice grip, is a wheel puller. Now, I have two. One I got from Portland's, one I got off of eBay. Portland's works great for diesel and steam of Gilbert. However, it's not quite large enough to pull off some of the large drivers of pre-war Lionel. And that's the reason I have another wheel puller that has actually thinner feet or lifts that you can get behind these wheels, because you may find these wheels are pinched in sometimes so tight you can't even get the plate or the slot or the lift between the wheel and the body of this thing in order to begin lifting it off. The other thing I've run into, and I did on this train as well, is when I pull some of these wheels off, what comes off is the wheel without the insulator. The insulator somehow has become bonded to the axle. All I do there is clean the axle thoroughly. I'll actually clean this thoroughly eventually and repurpose it. And then I put on a new insulator. This one's white. That one's kind of clear. And what I've found in order to push those on is that don't just take them dry with a wheel and put them in a vice grip and try to push them on. My experience has been that's a good way of giving yourself a chance of breaking those. What I do is I drop the insulator after cleaning it thoroughly inside and out into very hot water for about a minute, maybe more. Take it out, dry it off, then you can push it in very, very easily with your hand to get it started, and then put it in the vice grip, spinning it around, assuring that you've got two plates in that vice grip that are parallel, and just push the insulator into the wheels. Very, very easy. And that's how I get these in. So these have all been aligned. I try to center the gear. As a matter of fact, on one of these, I noticed that one of the gears was badly off center. Well, I can adjust that by the position of the axle and the wheel, and I can keep the gear more centered than before. As you can see, this one moves a little bit. This is set at S gauge with using the dime test, but the gear never gets badly off center. Of course, when it's going to change position, it's either going forward or reverse. This one probably has the most distance, but it's hardly noticeable. I don't move the gear on the axle. I simply adjust the position of the wheel on the axle. And that's the reason you might see some of these knots from the end of the axle to be a little longer in certain wheels than they are others. Now, if you are worried about the wheel becoming separated from the axle, it's not uncommon. I have it happen on my trains, is that once these are on and ready to go, clean the outside surface one more time extremely well with 91% isopropyl alcohol. Then with contact cleaner, let that thoroughly cure. Takes about a minute, maybe 5 minutes. And then I put a tiny drop of crazy glue between the axle and the wheel. It almost, as I have experienced on my steams and diesels, it gives them a lifetime of not separating. However, they're not so tightly bonded that you can't leverage getting them off with a wheel puller. Wheel pullers are very strong. Remember, they have opposing forces. They have a force going down and a force lifting up, and it's hard for most anything to resist that. So these are ready for placement. I'll come back and show them to you when all the work is done in another video of how they're placed on 470. As a matter of fact, one more thing. I mentioned that I think it was this one, it had dual pull mores on the same axle. Well, turns out that's not too uncommon in the GP7s. So you can see this one has dual pull mores on the front axle, which I never can figure out why Gilbert did that this way. The only thing that comes to mind is that this is where the commutator is right here. It's closer to the commutator. Why they didn't put them back here to pull the train rather than kind of dragging it from the front. And here they're kind of pushing the motor, here they're pulling the motor along with the rest of the train. Never have figured that out. I believe I did a rebuild for someone and I discovered the dual pull mores, and they were back here on the back. So I never have really figured that out, but that's the way Gilbert did it. Now I staggered again my pull mores to match the staggering of the way they are on the 470, the way they came from the factory. And that is pull more here and pull more there. So when this goes back in like this, I'll get the pull more in the same relative position. Same thing on this motor. I'll get the pull more opposite side, right, oops, can't see it because of my hand, right there on the same side. So I matched everything the way it was matched at the factory. So we'll see. I'll put them on there, and then once I get them on and secure, if there's anything interesting coming out of it, I'll let you know. Otherwise, I'm going to end this video and this series. Hopefully the next thing I'll be showing you is the end work, what they look like installed, because it's just a common motor breakdown on the diesels, and performance that's very, very acceptable. Thanks again for watching Dave's American Flyer Trains. So long, everyone.